Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. As always, this is your captain, Randy Wright speaking, and I'd like to take this opportunity to personally thank each and every one of you for choosing to fly over the friendly airwaves with us here at our state-of-the-art radio program, Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. Now, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let's go ahead and delve into the topic which I have slated to be the cornerstone of this episode, as it's a big one and an important one. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if it isn't surprising, the Biden administration is falling back on one of the left wing's favorite topics whenever it comes to attempting to debunk or discredit their opposition on the right. That is, namely, pointing to some sort of a boogeyman, some sort of a foreign actor or agent that is influencing the internal political machinery of these United States of America. We've seen it time and again. They pulled it in the 2016 election cycle when they attempted to say that Russia was pulling the puppet strings for then presidential candidate and then 45th president of these United States of America, Donald Trump, and that there was leaking emails with respect to Hillary Clinton and that those were stolen by agents and provocateurs for the Kremlin. Now, what I've always found so interesting about the left attempting to point the finger of accusation with respect to members of the right in this country being agent provocateurs of the Kremlin is the fact that the left has always had close ties and connections with the Kremlin, going back to the days of the Soviet Union when they were advocating for socialist policies, which had always been championed in Russia. After all, since 1917, Russia had been the champion of communism and had managed to sink its claws deep into the body politique of the United States, influencing major pillars of our political machinery and even into our military might. Remember, the most top secret thing we had in World War II was the Manhattan Project, and yet the Russians had known about it all along thanks to communist agents that we had whom were deeply embedded in the Roosevelt and later Truman administrations. So, no, it really shouldn't come as a shock that the left would use Russia, but that they would attempt to blame their rivals and opponents on the direct and polar opposite end of the political aisle and spectrum does come across as a bit suspect, until we remember that the left has always been of the sort to cast aspersions, to project the very things they're doing on to their rivals and opponents. So what is it that the Biden administration is attempting to accuse the right of being in cahoots and collusion with Russia today? Well, it comes with Zero Hedge, that conservative financial website that basically does reporting on financial news and has been highly critical of the Biden administration and has high readership marks here in the United States. Well, the Biden administration has decided to accuse them of having connections with Russia. And again, ladies and gentlemen, this is coming now from the ABC News, I believe, and I've archived it because I don't want any clicks or money going to those money-grubbing leftist dingbats, but it comes from Newman Merchant of the Associated Press. Says that U.S. intelligence officials on Tuesday accused a conservative financial news website with significant American readership of amplifying Kremlin propaganda, and alleged 5 media outlets targeting Ukrainians have taken direction from Russian spies. The official said Zero Hedge, which has 1.2 million Twitter followers, try saying that 5 times fast, ladies and gentlemen, published articles created by Moscow-controlled media that were then shared by outlets and people unaware of their nexus to Russian intelligence. The officials did not state whether they thought Zero Hedge knew of any links to spy agencies and did not allege any direct links between the website and Russia. Zero Hedge denied the claims and said it tries to publish a wide spectrum of views that cover both sides of a given story. The officials briefed the Associated Press on the condition of anonymity. Boy, isn't that a familiar pattern, to discuss sensitive intelligence sources. It was the latest effort by President Joe Biden's administration to release U.S. intelligence findings about Russian activity involving Ukraine as part of a concerted push to expose and influence the moves of Russian President Vladimir Putin. U.S. officials previously accused Putin of planning a false flag operation to create a pretext for a new invasion of Ukraine and detailed what they believe are final stage Russian preparations. Blah, blah, blah. It is the same nonsense that we've heard before, and it always comes with the condition of anonymity, because they have to hide themselves. They don't want to come out into the open. They don't want to be seen in public claiming these things, because they really don't have any information that is corroborating or backing up these wild-eyed accusations and claims that they are making. But we've seen this before. We have seen this before. This is also on the same day that Jake Sullivan, a former attorney for presidential candidate Hillary Clinton and former Secretary of the State back during 2016, who was tied with the Steele dossier that was ultimately proven to be false, as his credibility comes into question, as he said that he had no knowledge of the falsity of the claims that then presidential candidate Donald Trump was somehow in connection or cahoots with Russia, when it turned out to be untrue. And indeed, the evidence came out that the technology firms that said that he had connections with a Russian bank, he being Donald Trump, also at the time knew that those were spurious allegations and ones that were not corroborated by the evidence on the ground. And he is now the big wig for Biden in the Russian-Ukraine situation that is unfolding right now. This is the same sort of madness that we have seen come to the surface time and again since the left were going after Donald Trump, since they were caught flat-footed and surprised that he could actually defeat their unpopular candidate at that time. And now they also claim that there were 2020 election shenanigans and connections with Russia with respect to Zero Hedge. This is maddening, but it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone who's been paying attention to the Biden regime. The Biden regime is running into colossal disaster after colossal and monumental disaster, unable to keep their story straight as everything they touch falls apart. Whether it be the rapid 7.5% inflation rate that we see, that is a 40-year high, or whether it is the deteriorating trust that the American people have in the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating legacy press, we see that their narrative is falling apart. And so they are desperately grasping at straws to find any way to salvage their present position. And what way are they going to salvage their present position? Well, what was old is now new again, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe enough time has passed that the Americans, having their notoriously short attention span, will have completely and totally forgotten just how absolutely wrong they were about Russia. And remember, it was the Russian and Ukrainian allegations against Donald Trump that led them to attempt to impeach him the first time. That, of course, wound up being spurious and unsupported and ultimately went down in flames, showing just how naked and political the aggression by the left was at the time. They have made a mockery of our system, and that has been their modus operandi and their entire overarching objective this entire time. And it shows no signs of changing, ladies and gentlemen. No signs whatsoever of changing at all. But because nothing has worked, they are now in desperation, and they are trying what failed before. Now, I would laugh about this, but the joke is getting old, and the political ramifications that it are having on this country are far-reaching and real. Because we are now entering into an age where more and more people seem to be ready, willing, and able to accept totalitarianism and authoritarianism when we should be doing the exact and polar opposite, particularly in a freedom, liberty-loving, an open society like the United States. At least that is the way it should be. But as things have panned out now, this joke is running thin, and the Democrats have run out of new material. They are in sheer desperation as we approach the looming midterm elections, which are slated for later this November. They have to try something. And so this latest accusation, as I said, stems out of Zero Hedge. They're saying that they are peddling in shameless fashion Russian propaganda, material that is being produced by the Kremlin. Why? Because they disagree with this administration. Stop and think about that for a moment, ladies and gentlemen. It is the same spurious allegation that this White House has been putting out the entire time. Look at the way they went after Joe Rogan. Look at the way they went after Alex Jones. Look at the way they go after anyone who has the gall to disagree with their leftist authoritarian slant. But, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, it is beyond denial. It is flagrant. It is just out there in the open, plain as day for anyone who is paying a modicum of attention to see. And yet, they want to double down on this. They want you to think, oh my God, we're throwing out that buzzword there. It's Vladdy Putin, that big bad Russian bear of a bad man. You can't trust anyone who disagrees with us, or you're a Russian agent. It is hogwash, ladies and gentlemen. It is bald-face misinformation they're putting out while claiming that they are fact-checking. But they are not. And of course, if this song and dance sounds familiar in any way, shape, or form at all, it is because it is the same one they used with Trump for years. Just like with everything else, they need a way to distract the public into Russia. This is interesting, too, because it's happening at a time when Biden is trying to show that he's strong in all sorts of foreign affairs relations and diplomatic relations, and yet nothing could be further from the truth. He keeps falling flat there, too, particularly when the people that are in charge of this are the very ones who had close ties, connections, and affiliations with the falsified Steele dossier. How can we trust anything that comes out of this regime? And the simple point of the matter is, the simple fact of the matter is, you can't trust anything that comes out of this regime. This regime has totally lost any and all credibility that it once might have had, and I don't think it ever had any truly to begin with. That is the harsh reality that we are having to face at this juncture, and it does put us at a grave disadvantage. And we can't forget that it was this Ukrainian regime that Biden made fire their attorney there back when his son was with Burisma to quiet down any of the inquisitive eyes that were looking ever closer to the shadows of that corrupt and devious and foul family that is now the first family, the Biden family. These are things that we cannot ignore. These are the things that are out in the open. And yet, we are not questioning the credibility of the Biden regime. They were never properly vetted. And to press any further with that would get us in trouble with our information masters in the big tech oligarchs at YouTube and the various other cabals of leftist tech and Silicon Valley hogwash. So the wheels of disinformation continue. Of course, intelligence officials claim that the Zero Hedge website is sharing propaganda spun by the Kremlin, and they are now doing this to sow misinformation and confusion. Why else would they do that? It seems pretty typical for them to do this. It seems as though that would be the way that they could continue their false narrative and to take light away from their failings. But it's interesting because it's this article from ABC and the Associated Press goes on to say it's unclear whether U.S. efforts are changing Putin's behavior, and without releasing more proof of its findings, Washington has been criticized and reminded of past intelligence failures, such as the debunked allegations that pre-war Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. Zero Hedge has been sharply critical of Biden and posted stories about allegations of wrongdoing by his son, Hunter. And I'm not going to push any further there because, again, the big tech oligarchs would have the iron curtain of information come down on us here. But I find all of this rather hard to believe with respect to the claims and allegations that are being made by the intelligence officials. And it does come across as fake news, because you and I know quite well the U.S. intelligence agencies and the U.S. intelligence sector does not have a spotless record when it comes to this stuff. Going back to the Trump administration and even before, they have spied on U.S. citizens. They had kept information on U.S. citizens in direct violation of the clear and concise language contained within the four corners of the United States Constitution. But again, that is just part and parcel for the way that this regime has operated. And again, it just goes to show that when the chips are against them and when they are feeling as though they are down and out, they will turn to that nonsense, and that they will make spurious allegations. Again, it is all because they have nothing to corroborate it, and that they also see that their narrative and their agenda and what they want the American people to believe about what is happening in actuality is weak and falling apart. Nobody believes in the stories that they're putting forth. And therefore, they have to attack the messenger. They want, again, to shut down anyone who dares to be critical of them. Why? Because they realize they cannot compete in a free market of ideas. They know that everything, when it's stacked against them, shows them to be weak, feckless, tepid, timid, but above all, against the hopes, dreams, and dare I be so bold as to proclaim the future aspirations of the American people. That is the inescapable reality that we are facing right here and right now. And again, it just shows how incompetent and corrupt this regime truly is. They don't know what they're doing. They haven't known what they're doing, and therefore they will run anywhere and everywhere and try anything, essentially throwing everything at the wall to see whatever sticks to it, because that will be the story they run with. That will be how they claim that they are still credible and that they still are relevant and should be trusted. But they shouldn't be. Nothing in the great weight of the evidence gives me any reason to confidently trust them on anything, and neither should you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, with that said, I want to take this opportunity again to thank you for choosing to fly over the friendly airwaves with us here at the Wright Flyer, and I hope to see you again the next time we do so. Please do take care. See you around.